you're bringing opinions and important information to the table rather than just bubblegum for the people out there.
Yeah, well, we're trying real hard not to be a content mill, and I have this new deal with Daily Wire Plus, which seems to be going very well, and they're more corporate than me because I'm just me, and I have some people around me, obviously, but there's always a tendency once something gets established, and it gets to be a bit of a schedule behind it as well, and then maybe say a corporate expectation. You can easily get pulled into the content mill thought process. We have to produce something of this length for this time. It's like, it's very, very hard to avoid that. One of the things that's so nice about YouTube, because it doesn't have to be done exactly to a schedule and there's no bandwidth limitation, is you don't have to be dragged into the content mill process. I went to a lot of television interviews, much less in the last few years, but when I started to become more popular, and it was so interesting going into TV studios because I always felt like a product. And that's how the interviewers generally treated me too. Yeah. And they were often sound bites, a couple of minutes, right? You're just there to fill a gap. But that is what you were there for. Because it was a maw that had to be fed constantly, especially with broadcast TV, because they had to fill all the time. And so what they filled it with, in some sense, became subordinate to the fact that it needed to be filled. And that's partly what accounted for the falseness of legacy media, because, well, it turned into a content mill. And you could see that happening with comedians too. You'd get some edgy comic, and then they'd get hired to write a sitcom. And then the sitcom would be pretty good, but then they had to produce the damn half an hour every week for like 5 years. And man, that's a lot of content. And so it tended to kill the goose that laid the golden egg. I mean, some series managed that really effectively. The Simpsons was pretty damn good for about 15 years, which is a hell of a run. And then not even too bad after that. Yeah. But it seems that it's kind of run its course recently. I've watched some recent years, and it's starting to be a parody of The Simpsons instead of The Simpsons,
It's a little bit like... Actually, he's another Canadian, Marshall McLuhan, said medium is the message. Yeah. People just get put into the medium and they just then become subject to it almost.
Yeah, well, that was really McLuhan's point, was that just when a new technology arises, don't be thinking that, first of all, that you understand the technology or that it's merely a replacement for the previous technology. I see this with legacy media companies that try to use YouTube. CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, is a good example. They just can't get any traction at all on YouTube. And the reason for that is they think YouTube is just TV, except not as good. So first of all, they have contempt for their audience, right? It's like, oh, YouTube, that's for, trolls and ne'er-do-wells, misogynists and bigots and racists and people on the fringe, like Joe Rogan on the fringe, because they are foolish enough to think that someone like Rogan is on the fringe, which I think is really funny. And so when CBC started to put their content, like news clips, for example, on YouTube, they put up 10 minutes of content with 3 minutes of ads at the beginning. 3 minutes, and you couldn't skip them. And then they disable comments. It's like, you guys don't understand this medium at all. It's like you get one ad, 15 seconds long, people have to be able to skip it. And you don't get to disable comments. It's like, who do you think you are? Well, we're CBC. It's like, yeah, well, that's why you have like no viewers, because you roundly deserve it.